Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to help you master a very special track, and if you hadn't already guessed, it's Le Mans. The car we will use for this lap guide is the wonderful BMW V8 hypercar, and as it's a special occasion, the art car livery. My name is Gregor Schill. I'm a professional test driver and coach for the Coach Safe Academy, as also an esports driver for the BS Plus competition esports team. So without further ado, let's get right into it. A really good hot lap, especially in qualifying, starts already with the preparation before you start the lap. And especially here on Le Mans, it's important that you have that in mind, because the chicane is quite tricky here. We want to really try to open up the exit as much as we can, so you can really straight line your line here out of the corner and just get those 1 or 2 kph more for the next straight. Now we start the lap. You can try to drive here already a bit tighter because it's a bit quicker in LMU, and then drift away as soon as you basically pass the pit wall. Then you go to the left side here, turn in, that's all flat, flat, flat. And when you see here the white line next to the Total Energies logo, that's where you start to brake. So just before that, we brake in a straight line. It's really important. You don't want to have any steering lock here, otherwise you'll lock up. So really hard braking here. You stay straight as long as you can. Then as soon as you start to turn in, you need to trail brake, of course, till the apex. When you arrive at the apex, you can already start to apply the power. Then you do just a lift here to rotate the car and then back on the throttle again. It's important that you cut as much as the track limit allows you to, because this will help you to carry much more speed through the corner. Here on the exit we want to use every inch possible. Just be careful with the white line and the track limit. Now this section is all flat out, and we want to stay already here quite tight to the right to open up the quick S. And the braking reference point is, you see like this red markers here on the right side, those indicators. When you've passed the last one, just after that here where the grass stops to appear, you know, when you only see the dirt here, that's where you start to brake in a straight line. But you don't brake really hard here because you don't need to slow the car down that much, like for example on turn 1. But you also don't want to lock up the tires because you don't have the same speed as you arrive, so you can't brake as hard. And it's important that you have a lower peak braking pressure, so you can really trail the brake to the apex to help the car rotate here and get it nicely into the banking. When you reach the inside here, you can be quite aggressive on the power, as the banking helps you with traction. And this right-hander is easy flat. Just be careful on the exit. You don't want to drive onto the grass because it will pull you out of the tarmac and you might end up in the wall. Now for Tetra Rouge, like honestly, if you get it right, it's my favorite corner. But it's pretty tricky because you can invalidate it really easily. So what's the best solution here? You go onto the curb, and here now, just at this stage here, you will see the curb goes down again. Like it changes slightly its elevation. You also feel it in the force feedback. And when you just arrive at that stage, that's where you tap the brake really slightly. It's like 10-15%. You just want to load the front axle with it, you know, to have like a better turn in here. And this is just enough to essentially slow down the car and rotate, so you can apply the power again when you reach the apex. Be careful here, don't cut too much, it will be a cut, and the same goes here for the exit. And after that corner, you have a really long straight. So because this corner is so important to get right, we will have again a look at this corner in delta. We arrive here at full speed, 240 kph, which is just incredible. And here is where we see this curb basically going down again. And that's where you see we have like just a small braking tap and reducing it slightly already here, just to carry a bit of load into the corner. And this is all we need to help the car rotate here, essentially, as I told you. And then when we reach the apex here, that's where we can go quite aggressively on the power, because we have all the downforce here. We are not traction limited, it's all aero, and then you're fine. And just as you see here, right on the edge of a valid lap time. So always be careful here to not drive over the line, otherwise you'll get a cut. You also see it really well here in the data tab, if we go down, how soft the braking is essentially in that area. It's not necessarily about slowing down, it's all about getting the car to bite for the corner. The chicanes or basically have a pretty similar approach. You will see what I mean in a second. But for the time being on the straights, just try to drive the line where you have the least steering input to not scrub any speed. So, when we arrive here with over 300 kph, we want to, of course, maximize as much track as we can. So we go here over the left, but don't cross the white line with the inside tires, otherwise it will be a cut. And now we watch out for the left side, right? You see the metal barrier, right? And it's pretty awesome that we have like this orange, or not orange, it's yellow, marker here on the left side. And this is our braking point, and it's pretty spot on. So that's where you start to brake in a straight line. Really hard, hard, hard. And then we try to turn in, and we gradually reduce the brake. Then we have a slight coasting phase here, and then we start the second brake application for this left-hander. So when we reach here the inside, this is the first time we then actually apply the power. So you will never ever be going onto the throttle before this point here. And then really important to maximize the track here on the exit, so open your steering wheel as quick as you can, because this will allow you to put a lot quicker the power down. Now we basically have the straight between the two chicanes. And here it's the same approach, but from the opposite side of the track. So here we try to already open up here the entry as much as we can. And now we watch out here again for the metal barrier on the right side. This time it's not in yellow marker or so. It is quite hard to spot if you don't know this reference point, but once you have it and you drive and get used to it, it's again so spot on. So what am I talking about? You see here on the right side the metal barrier, as I said, and then you have those different parts where it gets just a bit darker, and we use here the last one before the 100 meter board. So if you look here where the wiper is, right here, wait, so here, just down there, that's the reference point. So when you arrive here, that's where you start to brake, and I can tell you it's a perfect reference point. And as I said, we maximize the track again as for the first chicane, so just be careful here with the track limit, so you just stay like that. And then we trail into the corner as we start to turn in, and it's the same approach as with the other chicane, as I said. Once we hit this apex, we go out of the brake, coast slightly, and then are straight, and then brake again really softly, trail brake till the apex. And once again, when we arrive at those green pillars, that's where we are only allowed to go into the power, so no throttle before that. Maximize the speed here through the exit by just steering as less as you need, as you can. Now a bit of a brake again, so you can just reset. And now one of the also most trickiest part out on this track, the next corner, and we approach it again from the left side here, open it up as much as we can without infringing the track limits. And then you see the white line here now, which is basically in the middle of the track. That's our reference point. So when the car is just on that line here and we don't see it anymore, that's where we start to brake. And it's important that you try to straight line your braking as much as you can, because it's a hard braking zone. You need all the grip for the braking you can get, and as you want to be really hard into the brakes, you need no steering lock, otherwise you'll lock up. So it's important that you point the car in a way that you can brake the majority of the braking phase straight. So we brake in a straight line here, here, here. Don't try to go here over to the left. It's valid, but you see it's banked out of the corner, so to the left, and it will pull you out of the apex. So you will never, if you brake and attack the corner like that, you'll never reach the apex. So just try to stay always just about on the white line and not more. As we turn in, we trail till the apex, and when we arrive here, we go aggressively on the power, open the steering, and don't try to go onto the curb, because the curb will trigger the TC so much that you will essentially lose a lot of speed. And the last thing you want to do is lose a lot of speed in an acceleration phase when the next time you brake is only like half a minute later. So again, after we've nailed this corner, we have again a bit of a brake, so you can just reset. And now for Indy, which is literally, I would say, the make it or break it corner, because you most of the time you have an incredible lap and you arrive at Indy and you're a bit scared and then you lose everything, or you have basically not a really good first part of the lap and then you risk it in Indy and you gain suddenly you're on a mega lap. So it's important to get it right. How do we approach this corner? You see the green astro or marker, whatever you want to call it, on the bottom here. When you arrive here at the end of it, you just tap the brake slightly like that to get a bit of front bite and help the car to get here into the corner. As soon as it's in the banking, you're 50% done. So you're just patient, bring the car over, and as soon as the car is straight here, that's where you start to brake. You can brake pretty hard initially, but you need to trail off quite early to get the car into the banking. And don't try to overslow the car. It will cost you a lot of lap time. You need to carry a lot of speed into the corner. When you hit the apex, aggressively on the power, maximize the track. Don't try to take the gravel. But we aren't done yet. We need to bring the car over as quick as we can to the left side to maximize the entry for the next corner. And we use here the last Goodyear sign on the left side as a braking reference point. But if you want to have, like, again, a bit of a more spot-on braking point where you don't need to have like a reference, you can use, again, as we had for the second chicane on the left side on the metal barrier, this again this darker part of the metal, which you can use as a reference point here too. We brake at like 80% I think, but you can't go 100% because then you'll lock up because you don't have the grip. But you go quite quickly out of the peak braking pressure and trail really slowly and gradual till the apex to help the car get around the corner. Once you hit the apex, on the power, maximize the track on the exit, and really important, you need to be able to open up the steering wheel when you go onto the throttle here, otherwise you will get a nice snap and you will lose a lot of time. Now, our final break, so to say, on the lap. We try to get our head straight and just think about how we want to attack the Porsche corners. And it's important that you're here confident and comfortable with the car, because you go at such a high speed you can't second guess yourself. And in order to help you achieve that, it's important to have the necessary reference points here, because we want to keep our thinking here minimal. We just want to drive like a robot by reference point, so to say. And you see here again the green part, maybe you recognize it from Indy, and it's the same pattern. When you arrive here, you just press the brake really slightly to just help the car get into the banking here and into the inside, otherwise you wouldn't get it here. Once you hit here the curb, you go flat out instantly because you're only aero limited. Left-hander is easy flat, still flat. Just be careful here with the wall, you don't want to hit it. This one is also flat, and then what you do here, you do one downshift, slight tap on the brake here to roll the car in, back onto the power, and then really important, when you arrive here on the right side, lift earlier than you expect because you need to bring the car here onto the left side and then you can go onto the power. If you don't do that, you end up always understeering on the exit of this section, and then you will invalidate your lap time. What I learned this track in LMU, I had it like 50% of my errors on this lap was here in this section, so that's why it's so important to get it right. And in order to illustrate that, we will jump back in Delta. We arrive here on the left side, maximize the track, look just how soft we go onto the brake. And then we wait, hit the apex and bam, straight fully on the power, maximize the track here on the exit, bring the car not completely over, because as we are not in a GT3 car, we have quite a lot of rotation here, even in high speed. We don't need to worry about that much, so that's why we can stay quite tight here. Just important that you get it flat out. And then left-hander flat out, and just about as we have a straight steering, we tap the brake, just go like to 50% maximum, downshift if necessary, and then go on to the power. And you see we try to not run too wide in that section, because otherwise we will just never ever will be able to make the next corner, the left-hander in that case, you know, flat is the wrong word, but if we wouldn't sacrifice this corner so much, we would just need to wait way too long to get a quick exit. So this is why we stay quite tight here, and then turn in, coast, back onto the power. And you see here you can, depending on the amount of rotation you have on the throttle in the high speed, you can just manage the rotation just with your throttle pedal, which is quite nice here. We are now heading for the final sequence of the Le Mans track, which I would say looks quite hard, but it's actually quite easy if you know the reference points and the way you need to drive it. So what you do is you already try to here just go slightly on the pit entry to open up the corner a bit more, because a really important part here to get this section right is to point the car slightly into the corner where you want to go, which helps you to carry much more speed. So we arrive here and point the car just slightly here now to the left, brake when the curb starts, because you see the car just follows then the line. You cut as much as you can on this left side, as much as you can on that side. And now really crucial, you don't want to carry too much speed so you end up too far on the left, because otherwise you won't have time to bring the car over to the right. So try to find a compromise. It's normally in the middle of the road, so you can still bring the car slightly back, then really soft braking application to slow the car down slightly and rotate it. You can't brake really hard because you have always some steering lock on it almost. So really important to have like this brake feel in that particular corner. And then cut as much as you can, but be careful with the track limit. This here could have been already a cut, so just be, have that in mind. And then here on the right side, you can use a bit of the curb, but don't take the red one because the car will bounce then too much. This was the lap guide on Le Mans. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to compare your own lap against the reference lap I use, make sure to check Delta out. Other than that, if you want to see how I mastered that track in full speed, make sure to watch the video until the end. But from that point, nothing else to say from me other than thank you for tuning in, and I see you in the next clip guide. Bye bye.